One time when I was a teenager, maybe 14 or 15 years old, me and my friend used to go out after we got home from school. We would smoke and take walks, but this one time, it was winter, so it got dark quickly. We were walking past this leisure center that was closed, so all the lights were off. Just a couple street lamps in the car park, and at the end of the car park, there was a small field where people would walk their dogs, and it had some benches around the borders. We decided to go to the end of the car park and sit on the first bench and have a smoke before we go back home. After being sat there for a couple of minutes or so, we looked out into the pitch black field, and we both got a horrible and uneasy feeling. We got up and we noticed about 20 meters away there was a whole group of people lying in a circle from head to toe, with their hoods up and eyes wide open. We stood and stared for a few seconds thinking, what the fuck? They were all wearing the same thing, like black long coats with hoods, and we couldn't fully make out everything because it was so dark. But it was just the creepiest thing. Even though their eyes were open, they didn't look like they were looking at anything at all, just staring into thin air. We both looked at each other and just started running to the closest main road so we felt safer. Still to this day, I wonder if it was some kind of ritual or something like that. I'm not sure. For years, me and my friend just told ourselves they were stargazing even though the light pollution of the street lamps. It was hard to see any stars. And just the horrible vibe from the whole situation makes me believe something darker was going on. When I was younger, maybe around 13 or 14, I was walking to town with my mother. I live in a smallish town in England. It was a quick walk, it was 15 minutes. But about 5 minutes after leaving my house, I had one of the most unsettling encounters ever. Whilst walking, there was a man approaching us. Nothing weird at this point. I thought he'd walk past us like everyone else. However, this random man leaned in towards me as he was walking past and whispered something to me. I remember it being creepy and along the lines of him knowing where I lived. It was subtle and it happened quick. I was shocked, especially since my mother was right next to me. Bold move from a creepy guy. I recall the man being possibly in his late 20s, kind of scruffy looking, a little chubby, with longish brown hair and a beard. But I know I've never seen him before this point. I waited a few seconds for us to distance ourselves from the stranger, then turned to my mom, completely freaked out, and quietly asked if she heard what that guy had said. She said she didn't. I thought maybe I'd misinterpreted the situation or misheard him then. We kind of brushed it off and continued with our day. I felt uneasy, but tried not to think about it. Rest of the day was fairly normal. Until the morning after, when my dad was talking to our neighbor. The neighbor told my dad that during the early hours of the morning, there was a man lurking right outside our houses for some time, hovering around my dad's and neighbor's cars. Now this is really weird, because we live in a kind of closed off area. The only people we see outside our homes are neighbors, but even they wouldn't come right up to our doors, especially not at like 2 to 3 a.m. Even delivery drivers can't find our house most of the time because we're hidden away. This has never happened before and never happened again after this, at least to our knowledge. Of course, you can imagine how absolutely terrified I was to hear this. I explained it to my dad what had happened the day before and reminded my mom kind of a I told you so moment. I felt so scared to be in my own home. I remember calling my friend and talking about the situation. We researched about what we can do, but there wasn't really any action we could take. Just had to be observant and cautious, I guess. I can't remember much about what happened after that, but I never saw the man again. The whole situation creeps me out, and it doesn't make any sense. The man outside my house wasn't confirmed to be the same man that walked past me earlier, as it was too dark to make out any discernible features. But it sure is an amazing coincidence if so. When I was 16, I was in a choir at my high school that performed for a lot of different events around town. One of them was to sing at the middle school sporting events. There is only one middle school in my hometown, and it's just about half a mile from my childhood home. So whenever we had events there, I walked. I didn't get my license until 17. This one night, I think it was November, we had to sing at a basketball game, and it was obviously dark when I was able to leave. Normally, I wasn't allowed to walk alone at night, but for choir, I was given permission unless I felt unsafe. But there wasn't any reason to be creeped out at first, so I started my walk. Just down from the middle school is a stretch of road with almost no street lights. That has always creeped me out when walking. I crossed quickly and had a fast pace going, as I am a naturally paranoid human. About 2 minutes into the dark zone, I heard rapid footsteps behind me. I at first figured it was a jogger, but they made no attempt to pass me, and just stayed a comfortable 10-foot distance for them. They began whistling a Johnny tune, which at first I thought was fun. At this point, I wasn't super scared, perhaps because of the happy whistling tune. But I noticed the footsteps began to speed up. There were no cars on the road, and given the lack of light, when I turned around, all I could see was the silhouette, shrouded in darkness. At that realization, I quickened my pace to barely under a run. The whistling continued, getting more breathless as this person began to run after me. I looked back to see a dark figure coming at me full speed, and in terror began to run frantically as well. I will never forget those last moments running through my dark subdivision, hearing his whistling and footsteps getting closer and closer. This person followed me up to my door. I ran inside and locked the front, checked all other doors, and went to my upstairs bedroom. From the window, I could still see his silhouette, and could still hear him whistling. I slept with my knife that night.